Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Centric. This being a show I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about You, Season 4, Episode 4. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So immediately, we quickly kind of move past the police questioning of Joe, or rather Jonathan. Turns out they were just following up on the Blue Cahill thing of like, right, we looked into the whole Simon thing, so we're just going to look into like his other assistants who might be looking to have, killed him. So they kind of brushed that off. But for Joe, it's just kind of like, man, look at these people. They're back to being bored again because they were hoping something exciting and exhilarating would happen. It's like, they are complete and other sociopaths. It's like, right, we're talking about the murder of one of your friends, so it's also connected to another of your friends. Even if you wanted to discount Malcolm, it's that clickiness of like, we're part of the it crowd, but then the moment we're just, one of them's going, it's like, oh, thank God, I thought they, like, that's the thing, like, you don't know that everyone else is going to talk crap about you if you end up being dead, that they're going to have these, like, that's also, like, the hypocrisy behind it. It's like, oh, do unto others what you want done to you, right? But it's like, yeah, you're making all these jokes, who cares about Simon? And it's like, you're no different. Like, no one in that group has any actual loyalty. So anyway, Phoebe's setting up this kind of getaway weekend that everyone can kind of join, and Joe's kind of forced to come along. But for him, it's like, I need to focus on finding the killer, eat the rich killer. And it's like, I need to make sure I'm not distracted by Kate, which, and that's the beautiful thing about, and I think is so interesting about it, is Joe always tends to find himself, I think season 3 kind of broke that a little bit of like, yeah, he always like implants himself in the women's lives, whether it be Beck or Love. He kind of manipulates the situation, stalks them, and finds an easy way in, and kind of like starts weeding out the people around them to kind of get closer to said person himself. So we usually that usually ends up being the thing. Didn't necessarily play out that way, because I mean, he was kind of secretly doing his thing while also kind of having, mentally having an affair with another married woman while he was married. So last season kind of broke that a little bit too, but he tried his best not to get connected to like Kate. He's not even manipulating the situation to get close to her. He only got close to her to keep her safe from the killer. And now it's like they're in this complicated spot, because it's like, you can tell Kate is kind of catching a vibe from him, and he's catching one too, but it's like, nope, got to put that aside. Doesn't matter. They go on this escape, and they're at this like summer home thing or whatever. I love that Joe later on finds out it wasn't just Phoebe who came up with the suggestion. He learned from Adam it was actually Roll who asked for that, and you're like, why? The guy doesn't like me. We have very few interactions. Why would he want to go out of the way? And now it makes him go, well, could he be the one behind it? Like, since he set this all up. And obviously you get spinning a little bit more, like, we've seen a little bit in the background how terrible Gemma is. Man, this episode really made you go, oh, she's awful. Even Kate's like, man, she's awful. Phoebe's like, oh, she's awful, because it's like the way she treats people. Like one of the staff people's like, oh, you're going to like fill up my cup. But no, you, that person's my fill up the cup person. You're the hoop in our game of croquet, because one of them got mad and threw the hoop. And it's like, yeah. Oh, it's like, no, don't just stand there. Get on all fours and stuff like that. And then later on spanking them. It's just like, your behavior is abhorrent. It's like, but it's because Gemma, and she's having that conversation with, Joe about being like, oh, Jonathan, like, oh, you're so boring. I'm just kidding, but try to have a little more fun, be a little more entertaining or whatever. Because she's like, oh, go ahead, you can laugh or whatever. He's like, yeah, he's thinking to himself, I will laugh the moment you say something that's actually funny. Yeah, she's kind of like, so full of herself, and it's just like, oh, God, terrible, terrible personality. And Joe and Kate just happen to be in rooms beside each other. Not only that, the rooms are connecting, so it's just kind of like they have to literally pull themselves off each other. It's like, oh, we shouldn't be doing. I love that. It's like she's like, oh, check my necklaces. They are tangled. He's like, nah, they look good to me. She's like, I'm not. Just go ahead. You're allowed to touch me. And the moment he does, he's like, I shouldn't have done this. I knew I shouldn't. He's like, you're good. And it's just like, oh God, they can't keep their hands off each other. It's actually. That's the crazy thing about this show, that I think I referenced it last season, maybe even talked about it in season 2. If you took out the context of who Joe is, you made this like any other story, there would actually like the budding relationship between him and Kate would actually be sweet. But he's that terrible human being where it's like, yes, he's the protagonist, but he's not the protagonist that you root for like a Walter White. Walter White's a god-awful human being. I still root for him. Raymond Reddington from The Blacklist, terrible human being, does some terrible, terrible things, I still root for him. Light Yagami, terrible human being, and root for him. Joe's not, I mean, even Penn Badgley will be like, oh yeah, I hate this character. I think he even talked about this interesting conversation with Victoria, the actress who played Love, how she can be a little more sympathetic to her character. He's like, I feel like that's what limits me as an actor, because I can't stand Joe, because he has to stress it every time, like, Joe isn't a good character or whatever. Like, I mean, it's an intriguing character, but he's like, the character makes his skin crawl, so he can never fully, like, embody and represent the character, because he can't sympathize, because it's like, no, Joe's a terrible person. Yes, you can see the humanity there, but that doesn't, because once again, he's not completely self-aware enough to recognize, Joe's not self-aware enough to recognize the monster that he is. So it is that complicated thing of like, yeah, you'd kind of want Joe to be happy, but at the same time, I think my brain is still rationalized to be like, oh yes, but he's a stalkerish monster too. So like, don't get it twisted. He's not to be like, oh, there shouldn't be like a fan club of like, oh, Joe, he's so romantic. It's like, no, he's a bad, once again, those cracks in the armor, those cracks that show you that humanity, that who he could be if he didn't have all these underlining issues, not even just underlining, these massive and blatant issues to, that the audience is able to recognize. The whole thing between him and Kate would actually be really beautiful. I mean, to be fair, he hasn't been his usual Joe self. I mean, he's been Joe for the sake of solving a murder mystery, finding a serial killer. But other than that, he hasn't really he's been out of his Joe bag for a while, which is a little redeeming. But that's even a conversation of this season too. Is it possible for redemption? I do think it's interesting that Reese is the only person who didn't show up for this trip. I wonder, maybe after everything with Simon, and after it was specific, like after Simon's funeral and everything. And I think the last time we saw him in that episode was when he was out on the balcony talking to Joe. I want to say that's the last time we saw him in the episode. So maybe a lot of that really kind of weighed on him, and that's made an excuse not to show up. I love that Joe got brought in by Phoebe, who was trying to have sex with him. Still doesn't remember what he said to her, but apparently, like, she's like, oh, I could tell you're an honest man. And it's like, right, any person would want to be with you, but Adam, you're spoken for. But she's coming from a place of, she feels like no matter how much she wants Adam, she just feels like, from her perspective, she feels like to Adam, she's not enough. And so she was trying to fill that void a little bit, but Joe's trying to convince her, like, hey, he's obviously madly in love with you. And it opens up, like, right, I haven't really talked about it, but I was married before. And it's like, yeah, well, oh God, I forgot what she asked specifically, but Joe was like, fuck no. Kind of being like, oh, was she your everything or something like that? And he was like, fuck no. And it's like, yeah, once again, I completely misread that relationship the way season 2 played out. Like, I kind of was like, oh, they're two psychopaths that found each other. But it's like season 3, like, showed that relationship in a different lens. And once again, what does that speak about me when the way I saw things end the way it did at season 2? And I completely misread how season 3 was going to play out. Tangents and all that aside. But it's like, yeah, like, something, like, he's like, I ended up hurting her. But, like, the thing is, at the end of the day, like, there was other things going on, and saying the same thing with Adam. He obviously loves you, just a million things going on, and Phoebe's just excited because she's like, oh, that's really sweet of you, like having, trying to be there for me in this regard. It's like, honestly, like, because out of any one of them, like, yeah, they had their, Phoebe does seem the most, like, her and Kate seem the most human amongst, as Joe would refer to them as, demons, because, like, even she was like, right, if you can find any pieces of Malcolm, she was going to give out a reward. She actually seemed upset. The others kind of joke and laugh about it. They're not too torn up by it. Kate has her reasons for not opening up, which we learned a lot about Kate this episode, especially her and Roald, like their relationship. Roald definitely didn't appreciate Kate and Joe getting closer, even to the point invited him out to hunting, which I'm like, I think the last time Joe went hunting was last season, and that was like a very cathartic bonding thing that they were part of, that he was part of last season. It was a very eye-awakening event. It actually kind of benefited Joe, because especially for Joe, it's like, oh, like, it wasn't what he thought it was going to be, and he actually, like, found some camaraderie in it, like he found some catharsis in all of it. But yeah, Roald is just using this as an opportunity because he definitely knows more about Kate than Joe did, and I didn't know based on Roald and Kate's conversation, I was almost about to go like, okay, so she is from like a wealthier family or something, because like Joe made a crack about that, and she kind of like looked away at one point in time. So I was like, are you from like a rich family? It turns out she's from a super wealthy family. We'll kind of get to that later on, but we also found out about her mom. Her mom basically got so brokenhearted over a guy she was after, she ended up slitting her wrist. And Kate has always had to be the more mature person with her upbringing, especially with her mom never wanting her to show any emotions, no tears. So she always had to be the more responsible person, even as a child. Because Rawls known her for a very long time. They went to boarding schools in the U.S. or something like that, which is interesting. Because even he was like, whoa, she was in the States? And I was like, yeah. Well, whether that'll be anything or not, but the fact is they went out of their way to write that into the story. Like, why not just like, oh, we were in a boarding school or whatever here? Like, why go out of the way to make it a school in the U.S.? It's like, might be something there. Maybe, maybe not. Either way, Rawld's taking them out hunting for like these creatures, they almost look like quails or something like that. I don't know what they are. They're probably not quails. But Joe's like, I'm not going to shoot these things. You literally got them out of the zoo just so you could release them, just to kill them. It's like, no, I'm not about that. So given the opportunity, he didn't shoot him. But Rawld is using this opportunity to kind of pick on Joe, to be like, oh yeah, you're less than, like, oh, I protect her from the men, and her like Malcolm wasn't good, and Simon, it's just like all these toxic and men in her life that weren't good for her. It's like, yeah, but it's like, oh, but I am. And so Rawld even had the gun pointed toward Joe. I'm like, I know you're not the person he's looking for, but are you really about to? And even Kate shows up at the last second. I'm sure Rawld probably wasn't. He probably was going to pull the trigger, but he was probably going to do it right next to Joe's head, like just miss him, just to scare him a little bit. Because Rawld's definitely twisted. I didn't bring this up before, but I should have. And since I'm on the on the conversation about Rawld, I kept wondering like why I recognize him. I think if I remember correctly, he's this skinwalker / shapeshifter from season 1 of The Witcher. When we first get introduced to it, this is that actor. He's what it originally looked like in season 1. So he's only in like a couple minutes of like season 1. So that's what I don't think there's anything else I recognize that actor from. I think that's it, but I could be mistaken. But either way, Kate and Rawld had that conversation, and that conversation made me go like, wait, are they related or something like that? But I was like, but the way he talks about her is from an intimacy standpoint, that like, oh, you should be, like, you don't need a knight in shining armor, you need someone, an equal to stand by you. And so she's denied who she is for so long. It's like, okay, so because she was talking to someone before they went on a trip about, she's like, yeah, I want nothing to do with that man. And that man is referencing her father, who is a businessman who's done a lot of terrible stuff. He's torn apart businesses. There was something he meddled with when it came to a well, and this well situation led to like a whole bunch of kids getting cancer and sick. And the business made like 4 million pounds off the whole situation. So it's like, she's like, my dad destroys lives. And I was 20 when I cut off ties with him because I couldn't stand being a part of what he was anymore. Once again, flowing into that notion of like wealthy, complicated family circumstances. Once again, because Beck came from it, Love came from it, and so did, and now so does Kate. So. And Rawld, being the dick that he is, he tries to lean into it even more later on and try to put Kate on the spot, trying to make Joe feel like he's still less than. And it's like, oh, like, do you hate us for what we have, that we're better than all of you? And it's like, oh, Kate, you think she's so normal and everything, but no, she's not. She's one of us. And Kate actually opened up to Joe and told him about everything. Once again, Jonathan, but just for simplicity's sake, I'm just going to probably from now on just refer to him as Joe rather than his fake name of Jonathan. Because I keep bouncing back and forth. But Kate talks about her dad, and I think that also applies to why she kind of like had such an issue with Joe, because especially him playing the role like a knight in shining armor, it's like, no, I don't need that. I think that's why she was so like against that too, because you have someone like Rawld trying to be that, being like, oh, we should be together. Like, the fact is that he, it's that whole conversation of you have the wealth to do something more, but he's like, yes, but you need real power to make that happen. So it isn't a thing of like, oh, using my wealth to do good. I have to be in a position of real power to make some good change. So you can't have one without the other. You need both to kind of make the other happen. And you need power to make the, like, being able to help people. But it's like, even with the powerful situation you've been in, you know, like, all we know is like at 6 years old, your parents got like a specific dinosaur named after you. You know, so it's like, you know, the way Gemma like treats the staff, you know, whereas everyone else, Kate in particular, and I think Phoebe as well, can recognize, hey, these are people just doing their jobs. They don't need you making it harder for them and trivializing them and making them feel like inadequate and small and worthless because they're not part of the 1%. Because I figured Roald probably thought if he could tell Kate's story, like kind of like dash things between her, like make her kind of finally confront what she really is, no longer hiding behind it, then like, I don't know whether he thought like it would really make her go like, you know what, Roald, now that you forced me to confront it, yeah, I am going to be with you. I'm not going to hide what I am anymore. Like, I don't know if he's so, because he talks about like her stubbornness. He's like, you're lucky I love it or whatever. It's like, you seem so demented, my guy. I even love the fact that when Joe broke into his room and saw that, like, oh, your camera, you've been stalking Kate. He's obsessed with her. It's like, well, once again, the pot calling the kettle black. Once again, you haven't done your whole obsession thing because your last obsession you let go for now. But other than that, it's like, you know, once again, calling the pot calling the kettle black situation again. Because I also forget, he's been in this situation before. Is it Peach? Was that her name? Oh, God. Was it Shay Mitchell's character from season 1? She was Beck's best friend who was secretly in love with her and obsessed with her. So it's just, yeah, he thought, he was like, oh, no, I'm saving you. Oh, you got this stalker, this disgusting stalker, even though I'm a stalker stalking you. But I love you. This person's sick and twisted. It's kind of, once again, it's that. Obviously, different circumstances. He's kind of falling for Kate, being like, I should be falling for Kate. This can't be happening. I'm not meant to fall for her. I'm more focused on trying to find this killer. So I even love he had a conversation after everything with Phoebe. He ended up having a conversation with Adam, he wants to propose to Phoebe, but he's got a lot to worry about because, well, a lot of his business stuff is falling apart, and normally his dad will be there to bail him out. But it's like, he even said, like, his dad, it's like, well, you're lucky that you're the fuck up of the family or something like that. That's something you can always take solace in or something like of that nature. And he kind of completely ignores all of Joe's advice that Joe was trying to give him because it's like, oh, if you love her, you should marry her. But he also said that line of like, oh, I will never be someone that's without money. And I'm like, there's many different ways you can take that as like I'm always going to put myself in a situation where I know I'm going to win. I'm feeling down right now. Like, I don't think everything's going to work, but I was like, nah, I think everything legitimately is going to work out because I'm too me. I'm too connected in regards of, well, the woman I'm with plus the family I come from to ever be broke. I think is kind of where he was coming from. So never got a definitive answer on whether that meant he was actually going to propose to her or not. So, and then later, what's also interesting too, speaking of Adam, it seems like Kate might know, but maybe she doesn't. Once again, I don't know how far Adam's thing goes because like Joe was looking at it and then Kate saw him looking. It's like, wait, you know? And he's like, I have no idea. She's like, I just want to know, do you know what I think you know that I think you know? And it's like, he's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. So Kate knows to some extent. Now, Joe knows about it from the golden shower perspective. And I brought it up. I don't know if it's a thing of he hasn't figured out his sexuality type of situation, or is it just like a thing of like, oh, you like golden showers and maybe you just feel weird admitting that to Phoebe that you want that. But the way the guy comes to him later on, it makes me go like, oh, maybe it is more than just that. Maybe that's part of it. Maybe it's like a thing of like, oh, I like being demeaned and, showered and pissed. Maybe, he likes kind of playing a subservient role in a relationship. Maybe that's kind of more so aligned with his kinks. Or maybe it's just a thing of like, I mean, he could easily just be, he could either secretly be gay or he could be bi, So, and sadly, Phoebe had to walk in on like the stuff kind of like, and it seems like it's happened before. So, because the way he was like, no, I'm sorry. Like the guy's like, oh, come on, like but the guy he was like, no, I can't do that. Like I think especially because he's maybe trying to make things serious between him and Phoebe. So, we'll have to wait to see how that plays out. I also forgot to talk about the fact is that we have a murder mystery. It's like, I love that it's like, Joe's like, really? Really? There's literally a serial killer out there that's killed 2 people that are close to you, and you have the audacity to come here and have like a murder mystery party. And it's like, well, apparently they do this all the time, but it's like, maybe shift it up this year. It's a little too morbid to have that, but none of them care, so. But I love that Joe ran into Rawd, who starts wondering whether or not he's the killer, which she's like, wait, did you do it? And because it's like, right, because he thought the reason why Joe thinks it's Rawd is the same reason why Rawd thinks Joe did it. It's like, oh, you're in love with Kate, you must have killed them to get them out of the way. And ends up pushing him out the window. I was like, yo! And he's just kind of smiling, and Joe's like, sits up. I was like, I figured I wasn't going to kill you, but I was like, that motherfucker tried to kill you. But Joe's like, nah, he must have known that wouldn't have killed me. He just wanted me to be in excruciating pain. He's like, oh, I'm just getting too old for this shit. It's like, wow. I was like, still, homie, like, he pushed you pretty far out. Like, yes, that bush cushioned that fall a little bit, but Jesus, that's next level psychotic. Like, he came swinging. Like, yeah, after finding out, being like, oh, I thought you were the killer, still going through the trouble of pushing you out the window, and especially if he knew it wasn't going to kill you too. And it's like, okay, whatever. There was a blood-curdling scream. Joe runs up and finds Kate over Gemma's dead body with like the weapon in hand. So Kate didn't do it, but either she kind of blacked out and kind of found herself over Gemma's body, or she tried to take it out, and, you know, the stupid thing people do where it's like, oh, let me take out this weapon and put my fingerprints all over it, and it's like, shouldn't have done that, but she's so caught up. Who knows? We'll have to wait and see how it plays out, but I'm really curious to see what Joe's going to do. Is Joe going to be like, okay, it's okay, we're going to cover this up, I know you didn't do it, but then Kate's gonna be like, whoa, how are you covering this up? Like, why would, like, I doubt Kate would be okay with you covering up. So, or would the cops immediately get called? Like, maybe Kate wants to call the police on herself, or maybe someone else comes in and calls the police, or maybe the next time we see it, the police have already arrived, Gemma's dead, and everyone's like, oh, was it Kate? Did Kate do it? And, you know, I'm curious to see how their tones change in that regard, especially considering, like, Kate probably could get away with murder without repercussion because of who her dad is. He has powerful enough resources, and she even says, like, yes, I have a terrible father, but I just happen to be his favorite daughter. So I do wonder if that's kind of implying she has other siblings or not. Maybe that came up. I don't think that's come up before, but maybe it has. Either way, very, very interesting setup heading into... I think we could go ahead and just call it the mid-season finale, the end of part 1. So where this all takes us leading into the episode 5, the mid-season finale, and what end up actually going down, how that all plays out at the end of part 1, we'll ultimately have to wait to see what ultimately ends up happening. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.